Atheism is down as UK gets spiritual, so said the Times newspaper recently after it published the results of a new survey. For the third year in a row, there has been a decline in the number of people who do not believe in any sort of God or greater spiritual power. In 2016, such disbelievers were 38% of the British population. In 2018, that was down by an eighth to 33%. Now, at the same time, this trend goes hand in hand with the so-called rise of the nuns, which sounds like the least scary horror film ever. It's up there with the likes of Dawn of the Florists or Revenge of the Dental Hygienists or something. I don't know. The Shining, The Shoe Shining, that would not be a scary film. Or Seesaw, not very scary. The Exercise of Emily Rose. Fairly Normal Activity 2, Fairly Normal Activity 3, or my personal favorite, Drag Me to Halfords. Shut up, that was a good one. So the rise of the nuns is not about a convent that is built on an ancient Indian burial ground. The rise of the nuns is the rise of the N-O-N-E-S. Those who, when asked on a census to state their religion, they respond, none. In this country, atheism is down, Christianity is down, nuns are up. So then, fewer people are nailing their colours to a religious mast, but fewer people are nailing them to the atheist mast. And maybe that's no bad thing. I travel around the UK talking to folk outside the church about Jesus, and I've developed a rule of thumb as I discuss God with all ages. If you are over 65 and you tell me that you're a Christian, I don't believe you. I'm not rude about it. I don't poke you in the chest and demand that you sing Shine, Jesus, Shine to prove it. It's just that when you tell me you're a Christian, there's some part of me that's thinking, maybe this person has heartfelt love for Jesus, and maybe they just happen to sing Jerusalem at school assemblies. 65 years ago, it was comparatively easy to choose from a list of identity labels Christianity and to kind of slap it on and walk out into your day and you're a Christian. Why are you a Christian? Well, because you're English. It's your birthright, don't you know? There is such a thing as nominal Christianity, right? That means being Christian in name only. So if you're over 65 and you tell me that you're a Christian, I don't believe you. But if you are under 35 and you tell me you're an atheist, I don't believe you. And for the very same reason. These days, it's incredibly easy to choose from the available identity labels, atheist, and you slap it on and you walk out into your day. And why are you an atheist? Is it because you've read Bertrand Russell? No, it's just a convenient label that helps you navigate life as frictionlessly as possible. But it's a nominal atheism, right? An atheism in name only. Push beneath, and who knows what the person really believes. The statistics bear this out. Last year, Pew Research in the States did a large survey where 80% of respondents described themselves as believers in God, and roughly 19-20% described themselves as atheists. But the pollsters did the right thing. They asked a follow-up question. They asked, which God do you believe in, and which God don't you believe in? It turns out that when you ask people who say they believe in God, which God you believe in, only 56% believe in the God of the Bible. And it turns out that half of the self-described atheists actually believe in a higher power or spiritual force in the universe. Funny kind of atheist, don't you think? But they don't know, right? It's just a label. It's just something you slap on, and it helps you to get around the world as frictionlessly as possible. These days, it's easy to be a nominal atheist, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a thoroughgoing metaphysical naturalist, right? You're just a nominal atheist, or a nominal nun, or a nominun, as I like to call it. That's your word for 2019. Mark my words, you heard it here first. Nominuns, they're on the rise. If you ask people to give you a label, they will give you one that probably doesn't really fit them, especially if they're not used to talking the language of faith, which folks outside the church aren't, and which Brits definitely aren't. Ask people what they believe, and they don't really know, and they don't really know how to report on what they believe. See, in that same Pew survey from the States last year, 40% of the people who said they seldom or never pray later reported that they talk to God, right? They don't pray. Of course they don't pray. Who prays these days? Praying? Pfft, nah, never do it. Do you talk to God? Oh, yeah, all the time. Talk to God, yeah. Just don't pray, right? What do we say to that? Well, you know, if you're actually talking to God, but not praying, brilliant. Whatever you thought prayer was, kiss that thing goodbye and keep on talking to God. Nice one, right? Let's not get hung up on the label. I meet lots of people who tell me they don't believe in God, and I press in and I ask them, well, which God don't you believe in? And they describe some distant individual, high on power, low on personality, some kind of bearded, angry individual with a thunderbolt ready to hurl. And what do I say? I say, that sounds like Zeus. I don't believe in Zeus. If Zeus is the God they mean when they say they don't believe in God, well, praise God for their atheism, right? There is a fall in nominal Christianity, and maybe that's no bad thing. There's a fall in nominal atheism. That's probably a good thing too. And there's a rise of the nuns. But it's not so scary, really. Just be curious. If someone describes themselves to you as having no religion, just be curious. Go beneath the labels. You might find that they're really a nominon. And maybe we can all discover that Jesus is the God we can finally believe in. It's the 8th of January. This is Speak Life, and you're watching the LIVEcast.
LIVEcast, LIVEcast, welcome to the LIVEcast, 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 welcome to the show. LIVEcast, LIVEcast, welcome to the LIVEcast, 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 welcome to the show.
Hey!
Hello!
Welcome to 2019.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes.
Here we are. It all starts again.
It's the year of the nominons.
The nominons. Yeah,
Yes.
I see someone's already put that in the comments down
Yes,
there.
start the hashtag,
Just
people.
start using it. Start using it.
Be an early adopter.
Yeah.
You know. They'll all be saying it in 6 months' time. They're like,
All the nominons.
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 Nominons. Nominons. Yes, so that was a little rant about nominalism and the fact that I guess people don't want to take the Christian label, and they don't want to take the atheist label either. It's kind of, I think people are having enough of the kind of the new atheist
Don't
label.
label me. That's what you're saying. I don't want to be labelled. I want to put in a box.
I'm one of those no label guys. That's if you're gonna put me in any box, it's the don't put me in a box.
Yep, absolutely.
That's where we are, and we don't want to be atheists, and we don't want to be religious, right?
No.
So we're just nuns. And just push beneath the label, and you'll find all sorts of interesting beliefs.
I'm quite a spiritual person.
Well, good. But yeah, I was doing some evangelism on the street last year, maybe the year before now, and there was a woman who said to me, "Oh, don't talk to me, I'm an atheist," and I was feeling particularly cheeky, so I just said, "What are you praying for at the moment?" And she said, "Actually, my mum's in hospital, so and that's." And I loved that statistic in the Pew Research data that came out last year. They asked people, do you pray? And for all the people who said, I seldom or never pray, they then snuck in a question later on. Do you ever talk to God? Oh, yeah. 40%. 40% of that lot said, I don't pray. I talk to God, though.
That's a ridiculously high statistic, isn't it?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have thought it would be anything.
Yeah, I never
near
pray.
that.
I just talk to God. Well, fantastic. Get rid of that prayer thing. Whatever you thought prayer was.
Stick with it. Yep.
Stick with the talking to God thing, maybe. But there is that that interesting thing about nominalism, and I just get it all the time when people kind of say they're atheists, and it's not. And as a Christian, I think because we think about spiritual beliefs a lot, and we kind of have a philosophical hat on quite a lot of the time. Sometimes, if you're my kind of person who likes explaining the faith to others, you think that if someone else describes their spiritual view, they've put as much thought into it as you have.
Oh yeah.
No.
The reality is, most people haven't really thought about it.
No one's as sad as I am. I need to realize this. And so when they say they're an atheist, you're like, oh no. Oh,
We're thinking, this is the, the walking embodiment of a Richard Dawkins in front of me right here.
Right.
But actually,
yeah.
I'm not sure Richard Dawkins has put that much thought into it, to be honest.
I've read his book.
Yeah, some of the things I've heard him say.
What was it in the Times review of books? Who did a brilliant review of it? Terry Eagleton, and he said, imagine reading a book on ornithology that was written by a man whose only acquaintance with the subject was the Big British Book of Birds. And you have some understanding of what it's like to read The God Delusion.
Yep.
And he says he spends the entire God Delusion either banging at open doors or shooting at straw targets.
Yep.
Beautiful. I've always
No,
remembered
it's so
that.
true. I mean, it feels like a low-hanging fruit to
Yeah.
take those pot shots at Dawkins, but I mean...
But every atheist you meet says, I'm an atheist, but I'm not the Richard Dawkins kind.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
and maybe, and so, like, with him, there is this image that people are wanting to distance themselves from. They say, I'm an atheist, but I'm not like this. And I think, on the other hand, the sort of institutional Christianity, the kind of Christianity that burnt witches and did the Inquisition and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And we're all wanting to say, oh, I'm a Christian, but not that kind of Christian. And I guess we're all kind of resisting labels. And there's a degree to which that's absolutely right. Because, you know, when you talk to someone who's a Mormon or an atheist or a Muslim or whatever, it's not like they have read the big British book on, you know, Mormonism, and they're playing, you know, and they're running through the playbook, you know, play by play. That, like, you just ask, just like even, you know, a Muslim who says they're very observant, you know, you just dig around a little, and there's all sorts of kind of heterodox ideas in their thinking. Same as with a Christian, you know, you ask a Christian what do they actually believe, and we're pretty nominal too, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, let's get beyond the labels. And when we're talking to people, I think it's just so vital to do what that Pew Research did, which is to go beyond the do you believe in God, do you not believe in God? And then you get into all sorts of interesting territory.
Suddenly you discover that actually they have all these beliefs that
Right.
don't fit the atheist label.
Right.
You know.
And that the God they don't believe in, you don't believe in, and maybe you've actually got quite a bit of common ground to work with.
Is that Tom Wright's thing?
Yeah, yeah.
People would say they don't believe in God, and he'd say which one they'd say. And, well, I don't believe in that God either.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good line. I recommend stealing it. Steal from the bishop, and it kind of works to get you beyond that, because I think otherwise, when here's another like really silly thing that people do. If a Christian encounters like someone outside the church, and that person says they're an atheist, we kind of imagine that we are doubly snookered in the conversation. We imagine that there are now two hurdles. We imagine that, oh no, they don't even believe. It would be really good if they happened to believe in God, but just didn't believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
We imagine that would be a
We're at least
happier state of
vaguely
affairs.
on the same page
Right.
in some ways. They believe in a God.
Some kind of a deity.
We've got something to work with here.
Right.
You know, like...
We would almost prefer it if someone said, I have some kind of belief in some kind of deity. And then we think, oh, because now we're just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Christianity, because now all we've got to do is make sure that this person knows that the God they already believe in is who Jesus is. And you're like, well, like, on what planet does that work? Because the God they already believe in is not a particularly Jesus-y God. And then actually what you end up doing is not converting them to Jesus. You end up converting Jesus to this like monster that they had imagined at the outset. And so like when someone says, I don't believe in God, we should be like, oh, hallelujah. Now I don't have to fit their concept of God into Jesus, or fit Jesus into their concept of God.
Yeah.
I can just sort of say, well, have you considered Jesus? Like, what kind of God does Jesus reveal? Is this the kind of God you could believe in? So atheism is not to be like run from, because it's likely that they haven't put that much thought into it. Most Christians haven't put that much thought into their Christianity. Atheists probably, the self-presenting atheist hasn't put that much thought into it. Probably, they probably pray, right? They probably have all sorts of beliefs in a higher power. Actually, they've been put off by certain things about Christianity, and you might want to get to the bottom of that. But don't be afraid, and be curious, and start talking about Jesus, because he might be the sort of God that they might believe in, you know. And my line is always, look, if God is like Jesus, I'm in. Count me in.
Yeah.
You know, and you end up getting a lot of resonance from people on that. If God is like Jesus, I'm in. How about you? And so often people have said, yeah, sure. You know, when you then unpack it, they're not as keen, but. The rise of the nuns, the rise of the nomi-nuns, is not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that we should be a lot more curious with people. And my big advice is don't be like David Mitchell. when it comes to someone who presents themselves as spiritual but not religious. Do we know this clip?
Yeah,
it's Mitchell and Webb. Let's have a look.
I think it's great the way churches have become more inclusive and open-minded these days.
Yeah, I'm sure. I just don't think I'm really religious.
Oh, they're happy just to talk about stuff, and it's a great place to make friends.
Can I?
I think it's great the way churches have become more inclusive and open-minded these days.
Yeah, I'm sure. I just don't think I'm really religious.
Oh, they're happy just to talk about stuff, and it's a great place to make friends.
Can I help you?
Hi, we're new to the area. We've just bought 3 of the old almshouses. We're having them knocked through, and we thought we'd just pop in and say hi.
Who the hell did you think you were going to say hi to? The Lord your God? Because I'm not sure you've lived lives worthy of his attention.
Yeah, we're not particularly religious, I suppose, but I think we'd both say we were spiritual people, wouldn't we, Tom?
Yeah.
And we're just interested to find out more.
Not particularly religious. Interested. Spiritual. Are you testing me, Satan?
What happened to the friendly lady vicar with the colourful jumper that I met last week?
She's gone, child. They've all gone. Banished by the bishop. I know.
So good, so good.
So good, I played it twice.
Yeah. Is the link? Have I put the link in there? Yeah. Do search the comments.
Why did we let Andy go?
I know.
See, and this never happened with Andy.
I know.
I can't do 2 things at once.
I've been asking that question. Why do we get Paul? Is the real issue. Yeah. So I think the comedy works there with such an evil vicar because it is so beyond anyone's expectation. Like vicars are so meant to be spineless. If one actually has a bit of backbone.
Well, and there's the running sketch because it's a running gag, isn't it? And not just a vicar. There's like the evil waiter and all kinds of different scenarios. So you always, as soon as you see that character, you know where it's going.
Yes.
But of course, it resonates nicely for us.
Yes.
As Christians, we enjoy it.
Yes, well, and it's because vicars are meant to be quivering wrecks of quivering bodies of availability, as Paul van der Clay calls clergymen, and so actually to encounter, I think actually the challenge from that is yes, obviously we know that when someone shows up in church, we ought to be really inclusive and warm and affirming and curious and let's explore their internet assembled philosophy.
Yep. 25 minutes in the making. Yep.
But I wonder also whether what's being derided in that clip is a toothless Christianity as well.
Right.
That is ripe for mocking. And that, yes, we are to be curious and those who present themselves as spiritual but not religious, yeah, absolutely. Let's explore.
As in, not only can they say, here's this terrible vicar.
Yes.
But also, actually, we can take the mick out of the Christianity that would be like,
right.
Oh, and let's just all come in and be nice to each other.
Yeah, I think they're making fun. Yeah, I think they're making fun of. There's something about the Anglican vicar with the endless cups of tea, and isn't that great?
Yeah.
But I think one challenge for the Christian, seeing something like that is, do we have a robust faith, that could actually offer something that would be a little bit angular, a little bit off-putting, and not exactly what people were looking for. Anyway, the main point of that. The main point of that clip is that when we are presented with people who are spiritual but not religious, just get into that conversation and just and especially if somebody says, I think there's a higher power, you're like, well, power, how do you feel about power? Right? Or if they say, I think there's an energy, like electricity, like what? And then they want to lean towards, I think there's some kind of love. You're like, okay, love is personal, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as love is personal, well, there might be a person on the other end of that. And that other person is not you and may have some different opinions to you. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, the higher power ones, isn't it? Like, how do you feel about power? Because, I mean, no one likes the higher power, do they? Like, when you think about kind of the being ruled over...
Right.
I mean, nobody looks at politicians and goes, "Wow, we love these guys."
Right.
They're doing,
Yeah.
They're definitely
just give me a higher power.
But a higher power. And then you can be anti-monarchy, and who likes their boss?
Well, you're self-employed half the time.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Also.
yeah, my boss is great on that side of things. The rest of the week,
I save you from your other boss. Yeah. But yeah. So when people start to describe, I don't know, I'm spiritual but not religious. I believe in a higher power. I believe in energy. I believe in love. I believe in groovy vibes and lava lamps. And I just think we've got good news to actually nudge people towards, which is, actually there is fierce, uncompromising, beginningless and endless love. Could that be true? Let's have a look at Jesus and see. So, just some thoughts on the rise of the nuns, and that was one of the stories over the Christmas break. One of the other stories that's absolutely top on BBC News at the moment is that more than 50 MPs have called on the head of Britain's largest police force to improve their response to abusive protesters outside of Parliament. And this followed Anna Soubry being called a lot of names by some protesters out on the green. And do we have a clip of that happening?
And play it just the once.
Is we have to be absolutely... I do object to being called a Nazi, actually.
Right. Well, apologies to you if you're offended by what you're listening to.
I just think this is astonishing. This is what has happened to our country, actually. This is what's happened to our country. But anyway, let's try and move on and be positive about things.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Pretty nasty. Yeah.
Yeah, but we were having this strange conversation about, like, because on the news they were saying these far-right protesters are out there, and you're going, well, hang on a second, like, far-right protesters calling someone a Nazi.
Yes. Right. Yes. Yeah.
Hang on a sec. Like,
yeah.
To me, you'd think surely these are more extreme leftists.
Well, except that I think they feel sold out by her because she's not a no-deal Brexiteer.
Okay.
So, yeah. But yeah, isn't it interesting that, if they are on the far right, I don't know, but that is the epithet of choice, isn't it? It's just like no one would think to call her a Stalinist. Like Soubry is a Maoist. Like we don't think so. Even if you're on the right, you bandy about the Nazi label.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like he is the only kind of evil that we can imagine, the Hitler kind of evil. I mean that's interesting, but there are lots of links on the BBC News sites to just the rise of hatred, especially directed towards MPs, and that put me onto an interesting article back in end of August, which said that abusive tweets to MPs more than double in the last couple of years. So before Brexit. The comparison is that Twitter insults targeting politicians rose from about 10,000 during the 2015 general election to just under 25,000 in the snap election 2 years later. And it's just become a quite toxic, horrible environment online. And it spills over, and what I find interesting about that kind of thing is that we get used to firing off invective at one another sharply, and then we don't really know how to deal with people face to face. And then when we get face to face, it's we start trolling people.
Yeah, totally.
And it made me think of Proverbs 18. Brilliant first verse of Proverbs 18. Different translations of it put the word differently, but it says, "An unfriendly person pursues selfish ends, and against all sound judgment starts quarrels." An unfriendly person. Interestingly, the ESV translates that word, "Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire," and that's the one who starts the quarrels. So it's this unfriendly, isolated person who just does what they want to do. They starting all these quarrels and that sort of thing, and you just sort of imagine these keyboard warriors. I guess I'm one of them. Sort of tapping away at the keyboard, calling everyone else wrong and an idiot, and it just makes me think that the deadly sin of our time is not covetousness and it's not lust, it's wrath. Like if you were to name one of the 7 deadly sins as the deadly sin of our time, I think wrath is the one, and surely it's fueled by us siphoning ourselves off, and just me and the other people who believe the way I think, and then there's the enemy over here, and you can facelessly, like a coward, just let's rip.
Maybe so partly an idolatry of self, that we think we're good enough to just go it alone.
Yes.
And maybe that's grown up more as well in our more westernized, individualistic culture.
Yes.
Than it has in other cultures, perhaps.
Yes.
So I don't know. I'd be interested to know, when you look at kind of online trolling, how much comes out of the West and how much comes out of more community-driven cultures, where there's an accountability as a group rather than. Yeah. I mean, it won't be 100% one-sided, obviously, but it would be interesting to see that, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And we'll see in a second the difference between kind of having a go at someone face to face and having a go at someone when you just think it's an image of that person. But I do see these two kind of stories relating to one another in terms of, okay, there's the fall of nominal Christianity, and there's the fall of people wanting to associate with the church and that sort of thing. And there's even, like, we're so individualistic, we don't want to be in the atheist camp either. I'm just a nun. I'm just nothing. I'm just by myself. I'm just me.
We are all individuals.
We are all individuals. And so that that leads to that being an unfriendly person, being someone who isolates themselves, and that leads to this kind of thing. But I think, again, church has the answer to that. An embodied community where you're face to face with people, and it's interesting in the New Testament where the common expectation is that you need to forgive people a lot. I mean, Jesus even puts it at the heart of the Lord's Prayer. It's meant to be a daily prayer. Give us today our daily bread. And we're meant to forgive each other daily. God forgive us as we forgive others. On a daily, but I'm meant to forgive people on a daily basis. And I wonder whether one of the challenges for Christians is that we don't put ourselves in environments where we need to forgive others on a daily basis. Because we're just not living with each other. We're just not in close enough proximity where we bump up against each other and have to learn how to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. That's okay, I forgive you. And we're just not used to that little dance that you do that trains you and softens your heart. And instead, online, you just double down and double down and double down. And so, coming into a community like church, come on down to church. And I think there you are schooled in an environment where you do disagree with people, and it is difficult. And you actually have to forgive people, and you have to be trained in forgiving people on a daily basis, and that's the lubricant that actually keeps things going. Without that, I think you don't know how to behave online, and then when you get in the flesh and you see, is that a Subaru Nazi? And it just we don't know how to forgive, and therefore we become wrathful people. So more face to face would be good. And we've got a clip to explain some of that. Can you set up the clip for us, Paul?
Yeah, we're ready to go.
So this is so Robinson Cano is an American baseball player.
He used to be on a New York team.
Yep, the Yankees.
Yep, that'll do.
Yeah,
not
the Mets.
And now he's gone to Seattle. Or
Yeah.
he went, I don't know how old this is, actually. So
It's a few years old now.
He went to Seattle, and he might still be there. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so they...
Robinson, if you're watching, just check in with us. And
Yeah,
let us
give
know
us
where
a
you
shout
are.
out.
Yeah.
And it's on... Is it Jimmy... I always get confused between Kimmel and Fallon.
Yeah.
Which one's which? It's a Jimmy, American
it's a Fallon.
Jimmy. Fallon?
Kimmel.
We'll go with one of them.
Yeah, it's a Jimmy.
Anyway, one of the American Jimmys show, he's got these guys in the street talking to fans and saying, what do you think about this guy leaving Robinson Cano? And they're like, oh, it's terrible. And they're like, well, here's a picture of him. Why don't you boo him?
Yes.
And then we get this brilliant footage which ensues.
Robinson Cano is coming back to Yankee Stadium tomorrow night for the first time since becoming a Seattle Mariner. Are you going to boo him?
I'm going to boo the out of him.
Well, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
All right.
Give him your best boo.
Boo! You suck!
That was awesome. Maybe try it again.
Should I try it again?
Yeah. How you doing, Robbie? Welcome back to New York.
Thank
Be
you.
back, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
No problem, man. Are you gonna boo him?
Yes, I am. Boo.
All right. Well, we actually have this picture of him right behind you. So whenever you're ready, go ahead, boo him as much as you want.
Boo, Robinson. You should have stayed here. Winners is in New York, not in Seattle.
Try booing him one more time.
Boo. Stay in Seattle. We don't need you in New York. Hey, how are you? Good. How you doing? I'm good. How are you?
I love that.
Still great. That guy at the end, so good.
Hey!
I love that he doesn't even realise for a second. He's looking.
Yeah.
He's basically looking right at him.
Yeah,
And he still doesn't twig.
Yeah. But there's something different about face to face.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's that kind of classic thing, isn't it? Where when people have got it doesn't have to be an insult thing, you know, but just a grudge, kind of like something they want to have out. And I'm sure we've all been in that situation. I can never think of a specific time it's happened to me, but I feel like we've all been in that situation where in a group you've said, we're fed up of this, we've got to say something.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, I'm going to say it. And you say it, and then you're like, and everyone else thinks so, don't you guys? Oh, no. I don't know, don't get involved. And you're like, you snakes, you cowards.
Yeah.
Because when you get face to face with someone,
Yeah.
like, I mean, as you see there, they just completely back down, don't they? They're like, oh.
Man, you've got to see the full clip. The full clip we put in the comments.
Oh, it's gold. It is pure gold.
All the responses. I just like that. And so we're just not trained in being face-to-face and having a disagreement. And it's okay to have a disagreement.
Yeah.
But you can still be civil about it. And you know, Peter Young's just commented, as Christians, do we not have an opportunity to show everyone how to disagree well? Let's face it, we have a great heritage of not agreeing even with ourselves. We are the experts here. So yeah, absolutely, we could, you know, cause a fight in the phone box, and as Christians, but you know, I think it's great, especially in this country. I don't know how people are going to vote in my church, and I couldn't guess by the fact that they're in my particular church which way they're going to vote, either on Brexit or party-wise. Crowborough might be a bit different.
There's a bit of a stronghold where I am, so I've got some ideas. But
yeah. But
you're right, though, because when you go to, I mean, the States seems much more, you know,
partisan.
If you're a Christian, you should be voting Republican, kind of.
Yeah.
That's kind of the view that seems
depending
to
on the church.
Right, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the sense you get from the state, that comes out of the States, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas here, you could be in any church and you wouldn't really know that you might have Greens, you might have Labours, Conservatives.
Are we any better at talking about, let's say, Brexit than those outside the church? And, like, I just wonder whether, over coffee after the service... are we able to talk about that? I mean, there's every reason not to, because you might want to talk about Jesus or something. But it's a good question that kind of Peter raises. Don't we have an opportunity to show everyone how to disagree well? And I just wonder whether we're not very used to disagreeing face to face with one another either.
But no, like you say, no one is taught to disagree. So now, like, the idea is you don't disagree. We'll just tell you what things you should think.
Yeah.
And then anyone that does disagree, we can shut those voices down.
Well, they're a Nazi, so
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you know, but like in school, you don't get taught really. I mean, there's still, I imagine, in some places they have the kind of debating societies or whatever. But in most schools, that's not going to be the case. I wouldn't have thought. You know, you're not taught how to think. You're told what to think and how to write it down on a piece of paper for an exam.
Yes, and if someone thinks differently, you need a safe space. You're being triggered. Yeah,
and what it means is that we're now in this stage where people don't know how to. I mean, and I feel it in my heart. As soon as I find someone who disagrees with me, immediately I'm like, right, like this is like the enemy now. I have to tear you down.
Right. Destroy.
Yeah. Rather than just like, well, we can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Or let's have a civil conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I'm here to destroy you.
I know.
You know, like, how do I do this? Show you the error.
Yeah, it has been accelerated by online clickbaity kind of just Ben Shapiro destroys little puppy.
Christian nails problem with atheism.
I know. I did not come up with that title, people. Paul is referring to a poem that I did at the Unbelievable conference, which went down fine with atheists on the day. There was even a podcast that discussed it very favourably, and the atheists didn't feel got at. And then, not us, another channel puts this massive red banner
on it
above the video. It says, was it Christian nails the problem with atheism?
Something like that, yeah.
It just immediately gets everyone's backs up.
Yeah, totally.
This is, anyway. So, in answer to your question, Peter, we do need to do better at disagreeing. Bill Lavelle says, American evangelicalism is becoming more and more politically diverse. I wonder if it's becoming more diverse in all sorts of ways. And whether... Bill, maybe you can comment on this, but would you say that different branches of evangelicalism are going wholesale for different branches of the political spectrum, I wonder? I don't know.
Because that would be the interesting thing to see, like, is it certain branches tend to be one way or another, whereas I think the big difference here is that you couldn't pick a branch and say New Frontiers guys are definitely these and Anglicans are definitely these guys. Yeah. It just doesn't work that way at all.
Yeah,
but maybe that's not how it works in the States. But
I mean, there's from the trade unions have got a history tracing back to sort of Wesley and Whitfield, and you've got the liberal tradition that kind of goes back to nonconformists, and there is something to the Tory party being, the Anglican Church is the Tory party at prayer. There's something there are broad sort of kind of trends like that, but it's nothing like as one for one.
Sure.
Bill's just said the diversity is quite diverse. Yeah. So let's get face to face. Let's get better at actually putting ourselves in a position where we need to forgive other people, and then let's try to disagree well. We had a whole episode on 10 things 10 ways of having a Brexit conversation, moving beyond Brexit battles.
Yeah.
So you might want to check out that episode.
I don't know if anyone actually had it'd be interesting to know if anyone had any conversations about Brexit over Christmas with family members, because I know there were a few people on the radio actually when I was in the car. They wanted to get people in on the Friday.
Okay.
With their family member that they knew they were going to have a big bust up with.
Okay.
They're saying, like, Christmas is going to be hard because
yes,
so-and-so, one's leave, one's remain.
Yes.
But I wasn't in the car on the Friday, so I didn't hear it. But
yes.
I don't know if anyone had conversations. I don't think we had conversations in our house.
I did.
We try not to talk to each other.
You're on Facebook.
Easier,
You're on Facebook anyway. There was a late night conversation. I voted in a direction that nobody else in the entire extended family voted. And they did want to know why, and I just said,
and so did you bring any of your wisdom to bear?
No. I changed the topic to something that I thought might be more conducive to a good conversation. But yeah, the mood in the room at that moment.
In fairness, I imagine that your family, I mean, this is probably in Ireland, so a bit of a touchy subject.
Paul is piecing it together for you, dear listener. He's thinking it through for you. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Touchy subject, and sometimes it's best. What is it that's the better part of valor? Discretion. Discretion is the better part of valor. Biddy Mata has just said, I was very surprised that a friend knew the leave to remain ratio in her church.
Wow.
I wonder whether she did know. I wonder whether she guessed. She got a clipboard and a pen?
How would you know? Yeah.
Yes, before taking communion. Leave or remain. Yeah, how did she know? Biddy, how did she know? What's going on there? So anyway, we need to be leading the way in good conversations, good disagreement, which is a term.
Disagreement, man. If you're an Anglican, that sends shivers down your spine. That phrase.
Yes. We need a different phrase then. Yeah, we need to be able to be face to face with one another. I mean, some of the listening processes in the whole good disagreement thing in the Anglican Church are good practices in terms of let's listen to someone from the other side and let's hear them out and let's be able to summarize their position and all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, we need to be leading the way in being people of grace and not being an unfriendly person who pursues selfish ends and starts quarrels. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 1. Now, over the Christmas break, there are a couple of stories of people who have been caught out by the Me Too movement identified as those who have allegedly done wrong. I know that Kevin Spacey had, in a tweet, kind of admitted some kind of wrongdoing that he didn't remember, but he sort of said, if I did anything like what this allegation is saying...
Yeah, I'm not sure whether he was admitting he'd done something or whether he was saying, I don't remember, I apologise if something has occurred.
Yes.
I think it was...
Yes.
Ambiguous enough to not be an admission.
But there have been many other allegations, and Kevin Spacey appeared in court yesterday over a sexual assault charge, and all of this was kind of brought to my attention. I don't think I would have kind of known about the story, except that he released a video, which we'll see some of, as Frank Underwood, his character on...
House of Cards?
On House of Cards. I was going to say West Wing. No. West Wing has a good president. Frank Underwood, not so much. Yeah. And was it on Christmas Eve? It was somewhere...
It was in the Christmas period. I don't know exactly when it was.
If you haven't seen this is an extraordinary way to respond to an allegation. Let's have a look.
Here we go.
I know what you want. Oh, sure, they may have tried to separate us, but what we have is too strong, it's too powerful. I mean, after all, we shared everything, you and I. I told you my deepest, darkest secrets. I showed you exactly what people are capable of. I shocked you with my honesty, but mostly I challenged you and made you think. And you trusted me, even though you knew you shouldn't. So we're not done, no matter what anyone says. And besides, I know what you want. You want me back. Of course, some believed everything and have just been waiting with bated breath to hear me confess it all. They're just dying to have me declare that everything said is true and that I got what I deserved. Wouldn't that be easy if it was all so simple? Only you and I both know it's never that simple.
Wow.
It's just weird, isn't it?
What was his publicist doing at this stage?
Man. I was thinking, like, where did he film that? Like, because, I mean, that's good production.
A cameraman is in on it, at least.
Like,
yes.
I mean, was it just in his kitchen? I mean, with a tripod or, like, what? Like,
yeah.
It's just weird, isn't it?
Who chose that
why
apron?
Would you do that?
Honestly. Yeah.
Nothing in me would make me think, if I'd been accused of things like that, what would be a good idea is for me to get into character.
Wow.
And do a bit on this.
Yeah, as one of television's...
Not as that character.
Most nefarious characters, yeah.
Just so weird.
So weird. And you know, and maybe we're getting back to the Proverbs 18 thing in terms of the whoever isolates himself, you know, those who isolate themselves. And I wonder whether Kevin Spacey is in a very isolated place and making some bad choices.
Yeah.
And what was interesting to me is over Christmas, you know, a friend said to me, the great tragedy with the Kevin Spacey thing was that she couldn't now enjoy Seven, one of her favourite films, right?
I imagine that is what's weighing heavily on the victims.
Well, exactly.
As well.
Yeah, well, exactly. Right. But it was just interesting that she sort of brought up she now can't appreciate any of his work as an artist because it's become obvious that on some level. And who knows whether the allegations are true, but certainly releasing this video made her think twice about her, you know, unqualified support of Kevin Spacey.
Yep.
And it was just interesting, like she goes to the theatre and she's seen him, you know, because he's been a massive patron of the theatre here in London, the National, I think, and so she's loved his work, but she now can't square. Can I enjoy his work and be thoroughly disquieted by the sort of person he is?
Yep.
And I think, and she was leaning towards, okay, he's toxic. He's a toxic brand. Everything's got to go.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, maybe that's right. But I just think more and more we are leaning towards a time when we brand the other person as totally toxic and everything they touch is toxic and everything must be, like, shamed and shunned.
Yeah.
And then there was the Louis C.K. thing. So Louis C.K. Is another guy who has behaved extremely inappropriately towards people and has admitted doing that. But now that he has, been on the wrong side of the Me Too movement, in one sense rightly so, he went back to a comedy club and he told some gags, which are pretty much exactly the kind of gags that he was telling all along.
Yeah.
But now the same sort of people who were laughing, at the jokes before, being incredibly risque and being, incredibly transgressive, now they're like, oh, this is beyond the pale, and, how dare he tell transgressive jokes now? And you're like, well, he's a troll. He's always been a troll. He used to be your troll, and you were happy with it. Now he's not your kind of troll, and so everything is tainted and problematic, and so like nobody now knows what to do with Louis C.K. And it just brought me in mind of what Sarah Silverman said about him, because maybe we can jump over to the Sarah Silverman clip, because she is another provocative comedian who is extremely transgressive, who just thinks of the worst possible thing to say and then says it. And she is a kind of a lifelong friend of Louis C.K. And she has been involved in this same thing of, okay, I hate what he did. Now what am I meant to do with him? Now what am I meant to do with his art? Now what am I meant to do with our friendship? And she doesn't seem to be able to have a category for hating the sin and loving the sinner. And I think that came across really interestingly in this clip by Sarah Silverman.
You've probably heard what's happening in the news recently regarding sexual assault, especially in the entertainment industry. And to be clear, it's not just Hollywood, it's everywhere. Like, this stuff happens in bakeries, too. It's just not getting written up in the New York Times. This recent calling out of sexual assault has been a long time coming. It's good. It's like cutting out tumors. It's messy and it's complicated and it is gonna hurt, but it's necessary and we'll all be healthier for it. And it sucks, and some of our heroes will be taken down and we will discover bad things about people we like, or in some cases, people we love. Let's just say it, I'm talking about Louis. And I've, of course, been asked to comment, and in full honesty, I really don't want to. I wish I could sit this one out. But then I remembered something I said on this very show, that if it's mentionable, it's manageable. So I'm gonna address the elephant masturbating in the room. And full disclosure, I'm still processing all this shit, but here's where I'm at on it as of this moment. It could change tomorrow, and if it does, I will keep you posted. One of my best friends of over 25 years, Louis C.K., masturbated in front of women. He wielded his power with women in f***ed up ways, sometimes to the point where they left comedy entirely. I could couch this with heartwarming stories of our friendship and what a great dad he is, but that's totally irrelevant, isn't it? Yes, it is. It's a real mind you know, because I love Louis, but Louis did these things. Both of those statements are true. So I just keep asking myself, can you love someone who did bad things? Can you still love them? I can mull that over later, certainly, because the only people that matter right now are the victims. They are victims, and they're victims because of something he did. So I hope it's okay if I am at once very angry for the women he wronged and the culture that enabled it, and also sad, because he's my friend. But I believe with all my heart that this moment in time is essential. It's vital that people are held accountable for their actions, no matter who they are. We need to be better. We will be better. I can't wait to be better.
I found it really powerful, actually.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't say I've thought of Sarah Silverman as being a particularly thoughtful person, to be honest. Like, I generally find her to be quite just brash and loud-mouthed on things.
Sure. A troll as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it was quite surprising to see it, really, and to hear that.
Yeah. I love Louis, and he did those things. And I don't know how those two things can be true. It's just like, you're at the heart of the gospel there, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And this whole thing, like, you know, so she asks that, as she asks the question, can I love somebody that did bad things? I mean, there's a load of things going on there. I mean, you just think, well, if you don't love anyone that's done bad things, I mean, you're not going to love anyone, and no one's going to love you. I mean, that's the thing, and then we've got this question, which then raises this thing of, but then are there these bad things which are more unspeakably bad than other bad things?
Yes.
You know, so people like Louis C.K., can they ever come back from what they've done, really?
Right.
It is part of the thing, you know. So and for us as Christians, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
You know, what do we make of that person who maybe we know who has been involved in things like that?
Yes.
Maybe has come to Christ or repented. How do we deal with that? Because do we really believe? Because society, I don't think society really believes people like that can bounce back.
Right.
Because she's asking that question. She's almost apologetic in asking, can I do this? And is it okay that I feel this way?
Yeah.
You know, almost like she's putting her neck on the line by just saying those things.
Yes. Yes. Completely.
Whereas some people would just look at her and say, any allegiance you have to him now is you're as bad as him.
Yeah.
You know,
he's toxic.
So for her to
and
even
you
ask
would
the
be
question,
toxic.
You're tarred with the brush.
Yeah.
And for us as Christians, we should be thinking like, well, what do we do in those situations?
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, if Louis C.K. If he turned up at church tomorrow, and became a Christian, what do you do with in your congregation? Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah. And Peter Young, again, has commented very well. He says, what about in Christian circles where Christian leaders fall from grace? How do we think about the things that they've done before? Is everything they did or said or wrote tarnished by their actions and mistakes? So think about Bill Hybels, who's being accused of all sorts of inappropriate sexual behavior. Mark Driscoll, he mentions, other people he mentions. Like, do we burn his books, right? And then what do we do about any sense of restoration and that kind of thing? And all those questions need to be thought of carefully. But I don't think you burn the books because you discover, you know, something unpleasant in somebody. Precisely because you find something unpleasant in all of us, right? It's not just, oh, Louis did something bad and how could he be loved? It's like, well, okay, you've done something bad. How can you be loved?
Yeah.
And let's take Me Too seriously. You know,
yeah, sure.
I'm also a Weinstein, you know. I'm also a Spacey. I'm also a Louis C.K., you know, and therefore, is there love for me? Is there grace for me? Can there be restoration for me? And only through the gospel. And it just seems like when we walk away from the gospel, we become a shame-based culture where we just denounce people. They are toxic and they must be shunned from the community forever. And if you want to rescue that person, then you go outside the camp too, and you know, and close the door behind you.
Yeah. And there is, I mean, and I think there's the difficulty in the church is that there's I don't like using the word balance because it's not what I mean about equal sides, you know.
Yeah.
But there's a tension, isn't there, between holding people accountable and saying so let's take the leaders who, whilst in position, have you know, done wrong things,
right? Whether
that's illegal things or whether that's you know, impropriety, moral impropriety or whatever.
Yes.
You've got to be held accountable. Yeah, I mean, we feel like we should hold them accountable, but can they come back? Because I don't think society has that category.
Right.
Of, you know, so the Louis C.K., can he ever really be restored?
Yeah.
Is everything he touches toxic?
Yeah.
Whereas in the church, how do we deal with that? And I think the problem is, as Christians, we're so bound up in the culture that I think a lot of us as Christians struggle with the idea of letting people back in.
Right.
So we're happy to do the shunning.
Yeah,
but we're not very good at doing
because that's the flesh,
grace,
the flesh, and no wonder the culture goes towards that kind of pagan view of things because that is what the flesh wants to do. Yick! You're gross. You're disgusting. you are shunned. But the gospel has love the sinner and hate the sin, right? And lots of people don't like that phrase because it's not in the Bible and all that sort of stuff. But it's a decent rule of thumb, and it does mean really hate the sin, like really. You can absolutely hate that sin, and it doesn't mean you always restore a person to a position of authority where they might fall again into that same sin. There are all sorts of questions about wisdom, whether you restore them to that position of responsibility. But you should absolutely and always restore them if there's repentance. Restore them to the bonds of fellowship in the community, and they are shoulder to shoulder with you, and they are not to go around always constantly with their chin on their chest.
And I think difficulty is like we're always keen. We've always got the sharp knives out for dealing with these things.
Yeah.
But then we're not really prepared to do the sharp knives round on ourselves.
Right.
To look at exactly the same things. We
Right.
give ourselves a free pass on
Right.
this or that behaviour or whatever it is.
Right.
Whereas as soon as we see it in someone else, we jump on it, and
Yeah.
particularly if they're in a position of power.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, Louis C.K. is pretty cut and dried because he's admitted to what he did and stuff. But there are a lot of cases as well where you just don't. You're not. It's not clear what's happened. And
No.
there are definitely people.
Yeah.
There are people out there who are not good people and will take advantage of these situations to point fingers at people.
Sure.
As well.
Yeah, but what we have is law and gospel. So what we can do is exactly what Sarah Silverman wants to do, and I think what could be a real lifeline to a culture that is just hurling shame and shunning people left, right, and centre. We have this law and gospel that says, that was wicked, that really was sin. And I see some of that in myself, and oh my goodness, we all need to repent about this because this is dreadful. And there is the grace of Jesus because the blood of Jesus purifies you from all sin. And if we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. But if we confess our sins, God is faithful and just and will forgive us and purify us from all unrighteousness. That gospel is, I think that gospel lands, especially if you're in the place of Sarah Silverman or in the place of my friend thinking about Kevin Spacey and like, what are we meant to do with people who do bad but we love them? Is there a hope for them? And is there a hope for me when I do bad and I want to be loved? There's a God who died for sinners like you. So again, I think the gospel is the answer to all of this, really. We don't have much time left at all. We've gabbled on, but we do need to talk about the video that we released last night, called "A Picture Is Worth 1,000 Words."
Yep.
So, Paul. You're the mastermind behind this. Tell us, what was your thinking in doing this film?
Well, it came out of the Brephos conference that we went to, where Aisling Hubert spoke, and she was talking about the way in which public opinion has been changed by images over the years, and so she mentioned a lot of the examples that come up in the video.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is good. Maybe there's a kind of way of doing. Initially, I thought maybe like Facebook posts, kind of like a day one. Here's the images on slavery.
Right.
and
imagery, the images that made a difference because they humanized the slaves.
Yeah, and so
turned the tide of popular opinion.
Doing it so that it was kind of like part one of so many, so people knew there was a kind of there's more to come, and each day because my suspicion was people would see those pictures and go,
right on.
Oh, this is terrible. Yeah, that was right on. And they would look at the next one and they would go, oh, that Emmett Till. It's just horrifying what happened to him, and and they'll see civil rights or see Alan Kurdi, and then bang, day whatever you're doing, you go, and this is abortion, and this is what's going on.
Right.
And my suspiption is the comment section would be a little bit quieter on those. The likes might not be quite as forthcoming.
Yes.
And so actually, I thought, we kind of thought maybe we could do that as a video form.
Yeah. Should we have a look at some of
a bit of it? I think so.
Let's have a look.
It's said that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Words can only convey so much. I can tell you about a beautiful sunrise, but if I show it to you, that's what really communicates. Images convey something that words simply cannot. Just look at the impact pictures have had on the world. In the 1700s, the Atlantic slave trade was in full swing. William Wilberforce attempted to bring anti-slavery bills before Parliament, but was knocked back again and again, until Thomas Clarkson came along. Clarkson travelled around Britain, gathering evidence about the slave trade and speaking to the public. He took some visual aids with him, a box containing equipment used on slave ships, including handcuffs, shackles and branding irons. The most striking was the Brooks, a slave ship originally built to carry 451 people. But in Clarkson's day, it was carrying over 600 slaves from Africa to the Americas. Clarkson published a diagram showing the living conditions of the slaves. Chained together by their hands and feet, they had little room to move. The startling diagram was distributed far and wide, and the print hung in every abolitionist home, making an instant impression on all who saw it. Around the same time, Josiah Wedgwood joined the fight. He designed and manufactured the now famous Wedgwood medallion, perhaps the most famous image of a black person in all 18th century art. The medallion bore the phrase, "Am I not a man and a brother?" becoming a catchphrase of both British and American abolitionists. The image was reproduced everywhere, from books and leaflets to snuff boxes and cufflinks, and helped galvanise support for the abolitionist cause. Benjamin Franklin commented that the medallion's effectiveness was equal to that of the best written pamphlet in procuring favour to those oppressed people. In July 1833, the Abolition of Slavery Act was passed. But the struggle for equal rights went on. So it's just the first couple of minutes of the video, and actually then we goes on to some stuff, the civil rights movement, and even a little bit of a precursor to that with Emmett Till. If you don't know his story, do check out the video. But it kind of runs through how people seeing these very visual things, in the case of slavery, it was the ship or the items. People saw these things and were horrified by it. And in the case of Emmett Till, I mean, this boy who was incredibly badly beaten and murdered, his body being put on public display in front of the media, you know, photos taken, it's horrifying to see. Those things are just like only a few years ago with Aylan Kurdi, the little boy washed up on the shore, kind of just a photo that went viral and people saw it, and it kind of turned it turned David Cameron round, it turned you know, United Kingdom's stance around on what it was doing. We're just saying, actually, when people see things, it makes a difference, you know. And I think Ashleen was saying, you know, that's how comic relief works. Right. You know, comic relief doesn't just, you don't just have Lenny Henry standing in a studio saying, describing, there's this terrible stuff going on, is it terrible? Yeah. You see the photos and suddenly, you know, I defy anybody to sit through a whole evening of comic relief, well, generally, but like, to sit through a whole evening of comic relief without shedding a tear, you know, because it grabs you, doesn't it, by the heartstrings when you think, oh my goodness, the horror of what's going on. And I think hopefully when people see this, I mean, what I hope is what they're going through is they see these things and they go, yeah, these are terrible, and they get to the abortion and they go, this is terrible. Because I think, as we've seen or we've talked about in previous discussions, there are lots of people out there who just have never seen it. Well, it is hidden behind closed doors, just like the real reality of slavery was hidden behind closed doors. Or what racism was really like wasn't that obvious outside of certain areas until it was put on public display. So hopefully, I mean, it will go out. I mean, it's on YouTube. It will go out on Facebook later tonight as well. So hopefully, we'll get it shared around a bit as well. Hopefully, people will take the time to watch it. And it will hit home a bit. And I think particularly it's the quote at the end I like is the William Wilberforce one that he said after he'd, you know, laid out his case for abolishing slavery. You know, he said, you can choose to turn away, but you can never say that you did not know. And I think that's part of the challenge of the video, is saying, look, this is happening. And none of us have got an excuse now. We can't say we didn't know this was going on. Here it is in full view.
Yes, and I'm meeting up with Dave Brennan from Brefos very soon, and what I'd love to talk to him about is, okay, well, now what? You know, like, I want to do something. What can be done? What should we do? And we'll get into a conversation with him.
I wonder whether, I mean, a thing for me, I mean, we haven't talked about this, but from our end, at least in one sense, that video that we've just done is, although it's made by us, there's nothing particularly Christian about it explicitly. I wonder whether it'd be great to do a video which is like, you know, for the vicar, you know, how can I talk to my church about abortion?
Yeah.
Well, I can show this video as a starter. Maybe we could do something like that. I don't know, but you know, at least something for the Christian that says this is why we should care about this from God's point of view.
Yes.
If it isn't obvious already, but
yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But yeah, Dave will have bigger picture ideas as well, I'm sure. So
yeah. So let us know. Let us know what you'd like to see as we get back into the swing of making videos. Some thorny questions in the pipeline, and some more videos on all sorts of topics. So,
see where the year takes us.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, that'll do us. And thank you, Bill Lavelle, saying this livecast is awesome. Not my words. The words of Bill Lavelle. Thanks for doing it. It's amazing that we Yanks can have our morning coffee with two mates in the UK. He's very contextualized. He knows how to speak the lingo.
The old mucker.
Machina. Very good. And brilliant. So yes, we'll share that video on Facebook tonight. You can be sharing it on YouTube right now. If you're not subscribed to YouTube, why don't you subscribe to YouTube? What are you doing?
Just do it.
Take a look at yourself. Like, have some... It's 2019. It's time to subscribe to Speak Life UK, especially because that helps us get seen in the search engine, and actually other people discover our videos because you've clicked on that little subscribe button.
And that's particularly important on YouTube, because I would say on YouTube there's more non-Christians engaging with the videos generally than... It tends to be more Christians on Facebook, which is great. But YouTube is a place to be.
Your little click will help us get seen and help us scatter the seed further.
Brilliant.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Glenn.
See you next week.
Have a good week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.